Hello friends, and welcome to A Stitch with Me. Well, slightly a different kind of stitch with me. In this one I'm going to show you this new pattern and also briefly tell you the story behind the picture because it's quite interesting, and I have seen this picture before and I had some idea that it was an old, possibly 13th or 14th century painting, but I didn't know any of the fascinating details. But first of all, let me explain where I found this chart. The pattern was obtained through Artecy.com. I really do like Artecy charts, but I think they can tend to maybe veer towards the heavy confetti end a little bit. But I think it also, because there is so much confetti, I think it's what adds an incredible amount of detail. And since I started this just a few days ago, already there's been quite a number of beige and yellow shades, which I've added here. But I think that is going to make the end result pretty impressive, actually. So I don't really mind at this point. I think I'll get into some more of the darker colours as I go down. So this pattern was given as a freebie and I downloaded it straight away. And I think it's still free if you head over to their website and have a look under the free patterns tab. I'll also leave a link below, but I think it was only free for a certain time. So if you get there and it's gone, then of course it's no longer free, but you can still probably purchase the chart from them. It's available in two versions. One is the full large version, which is 396 stitches across by 550 down, and there's a cropped version that doesn't have the floral and text bit at the bottom that you can see there. That's 384 by 330 down, so they basically just cropped off the bottom part with all the flowers and the text. And I'm working this on 25 count, 2/1/2 stitch, 10 stitch, which is usually my preference, and this is a pre-gridded even weave fabric. So settle down with your stitching as I take you back to the world of ancient Greece. It's one that I haven't been all that familiar with, if I'm honest, but the stories are truly fascinating, if a little bit fantastical, of course. So this painting is based on a poem which is called Teseida. It's a long poem written by Giovanni Boccaccio around 1340. And it's not so much about Greek mythology, although there are some mythological ties, but it is in fact a Renaissance romance, and ancient Greece has been used as the setting for this medieval love story, and the poem's subject is the ancient Greek hero Theseus. The actual illuminated manuscript of Emilia in the Garden is generally attributed to the 15th century Netherlandish painter and illuminator Barthélemy de Eyck, and the poems or writings appear to be divided into 12 books. Now, the majority of this story is about the rivalry between two knights, Palamon and Arcite, who both happen to fall in love with Emilia, who happens to be the sister-in-law to the ruler Theseus. Of course she is. Interestingly, the story is the primary inspiration for the Knight's Tale in Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So it might be more recognised there as it crossed over into English literature. And I won't refer to all of the books that encapsulate the story, as that would be way too long. So I'll start in my version of retelling in the setting of Athens, Greece, where these two men in the picture here were imprisoned after being discovered almost dead on a battlefield. In the story, these two captive knights, Palamon and Arcite, look out from their prison window of their shared prison cell, and both of the men are spying on Emilia, who sits weaving a garland of red and white roses. They are instantly smitten with her, and from what I've discovered, they actually get along very well, until they both fell for Emilia, and of course jealousy is a double-edged sword. But neither of these men have any hope of pursuing her, of course, so many hours were spent watching and longing for a chance to be with her. However, one day, at the intercession of a friend, One of these men, Arcite, is released from prison under the condition that he leaves Athens and never again returns. Both men are beside themselves with love agony. Palamon because he remains in prison where he can see Emilia, but he still can't reach her. And Arcite because he can't even see Emilia, he's forced to stay out of Athens on pain of death. Such a sad situation for both of them. Doesn't look like they've got much of a chance. But anyway, things hotten up a bit. After many years that pass, Arcite has become gaunt from his love agonies, and he looks very different from his previous appearance. So he decides to risk everything by returning to Athens under disguise and adopting a new name, Penteo. There he manages to secure a position in court and gradually gains prominence. Still in prison, poor lonely Palamon eventually learns of Arcite's return and he becomes wildly jealous. I don't blame him. This leads Palamon to make a daring escape. I'm wondering how he did that actually, and why did he not do it sooner? But anyway, Palamon escapes and somehow he confronts Arcite in a grove where Arcite frequently visited to endure the pain of unrequited love. My goodness, these two really were hit hard with the love bug, weren't they? The two commence a duel to the death, but they are soon interrupted by Theseus, who just happens to be hunting through that very same grove. That's not surprising, if a little bit too obvious. When Theseus learns who the combatants are, and they're really just prisoners of his, and the cause of their dispute, he decrees that the two men must fight it out formally in the lists, and the victor of the tournament will win the hand of Emilia. But hang on a minute, he hasn't even asked her if she likes either of them. I think that's terrible. The ladies never get a choice, do they, in these ancient scripts? He gives the two men 1 year to scour the world and gather 100 of the noblest knights each to fight for the hand of the maidenly Emilia. And a year later, the opposing champions arrive and are described in detail, as is the arena specially built for the contest. Just before the morning of the battle, the opposing lovers, as well as Emilia, who apparently really wants to remain single, all three of them pray to their respective deities. This is the really interesting part, I think. Palamon prays to Venus, the goddess of love, to win Emilia's hand. Arcite prays to Mars, the god of war, for victory. And Emilia prays to Diana, the goddess of chastity, to remain unwed, singing to Diana, the goddess, to request purity, protection, and freedom from love. That poor woman. She obviously never found either of them attractive, and now she's praying so hard so that she can remain single. You just have to feel sorry for her, don't you? And it probably went something like this. Dear Diana, goddess of chastity, you know, these two guys have been gawking at me for years, but I don't fancy either of them. I fancy neither of them. In fact, they watch my every move in a very creepy way. Every time I stroll around the garden, I can feel their eyes on my back. So please do me a favour and don't let either of them win the battle. Well, the goddess of chastity must have been preoccupied elsewhere, or perhaps she didn't hear Emilia's plea, because the knights each receive a positive sign from their different gods that almost seems to contradict each other. And then the battle is prepared. Oh, the two opposing armies engage in a battle that is described in great detail. But it soon comes down to a contest between the two men. Finally, Arcite gains the victory, doing so without killing Palamon. And Arcite is accidentally injured, but he is still able to celebrate his victory, and he is at last wedded to Emilia. I bet she wasn't very happy about that. But tragically, or maybe to Emilia's advantage, Arcite, after much suffering, dies from his wounds, and he is given a hero's funeral. In the end, Theseus, I can't say that properly, determines that Emilia and Palamon should marry, and this is done. Thus all the seemingly contradictory prophecies of the gods are fulfilled. So the gods were right, they both got to marry her in the end. But the poor woman, she didn't really get a say in any of that, did she? She was forced to marry one. Then when he died, she was forced to marry the other one. So I think not a very nice brother-in-law. And that is the story of this painting, and I find it absolutely fascinating. And I was completely drawn to it as soon as I saw it on the website. So then I had to decide whether I wanted to start the cropped version or if I preferred to start the full version. And in the end, I decided to start the large version because I want the option of being able to do the bottom half of it. And because it's so beautiful and I love illuminated manuscripts with Latin or French text. Actually, one translation I found for the text below is that it is written in Middle French and it describes the astronomical timing of the scene, specifically that it is a bright spring morning in the month of May. And I've just written down here, the Gothic script at the bottom translates to Phoebus, the sun god, rising with his horses, was holding the humble beast of the sky that carried away Europa. That is to say, the sun was in the sign of Taurus. Now, the humble beast of the sky that carried away Europa refers to the myth of Zeus, transforming into a white bull. And we also know that the bull constellation is Taurus. So the sun enters the house of Taurus late in April, stays for most of May. And the French little text bit there that you see is telling us of a spring morning. And that Emilia is singing and weaving a flower wreath, and she's unaware the two men are falling in love with her. So I'm not sure if it's love or just what we would call lust, probably more lust than anything else, or a peeping Tom, or two Toms for that matter. But I think it's fascinating to travel back to the days of chivalric romance and, the fantasy of when real knights fought to the death for the love of a woman. Very different to our modern dating world, right? Yeah, I think I'd take my chances, if possible, with the old-fashioned style of romance, to be honest. But it was certainly more bloody, and often it seemed to end in tragedy. Someone always dies in the end, and if it's not the male pursuer, sometimes it's the female. But one of my questions when I was looking at this would be, why would they erect a prison in a garden belonging to a maiden who also happened to be the sister of a queen and whose brother-in-law was a king or ruler? Surely that's just asking for trouble. But I guess only the poet could answer that question, and it's quite possible that he might say, this is the beauty of imagination and a timeless storytelling. A story of love, bravery, honour and tragedy, themes these illuminations are all about, really. The tragic love triangle between Arcite, Palamon and Emilia is a pure invention of medieval courtly love literature. And as I was scouring the internet for more information, I did also happen to discover that the poet, Boccaccio, wrote the books during a period of deep romantic longing. So that's really quite telling. And in the poem's introduction, he explicitly states that he wrote the story to win back the affection of an idealized woman he called Fiammetta, and that the intense, agonized longing that the imprisoned knights feel when looking at Emilia through the bars was his own way of channeling his own real-world heartbreak and feelings of isolation. Nothing more painful than unrequited love, is there? I think most of us have been there one way or another. So as I'm stitching this, I can't help but think about these characters, Arcite, Palamon and Emilia. And I know that they're not real, but they embody something very real, themes that are infinite. They just go on and on. And the fact that everybody feels emotions of longing and desire and unrequited love, that makes it so fascinating, even though we're talking about a story that was written hundreds of years ago. I might even someday look up all the books and see if I can get to read the rest of the story, because it seems to be really interesting. And I didn't know there was so much to one. I knew there was probably a story behind it, because there usually is when you look at these medieval manuscript illuminations. but you have to do a lot of sort of searching around to find the information, and then it varies, and sometimes it can conflict with other websites that you look at, and dates can be different, and you do have to be careful at the sources that you're looking at. But I have tried pretty much to be as accurate as possible with the information that I've given you today. But overall, the theme is quite understandable, and I think it's quite interesting. And I hope you do too. I really hope that you've enjoyed this stitch with me, because I'm definitely going to be enjoying stitching this piece over the winter. I find it really interesting that Boccaccio will never know that some random woman in Scotland, way in the future, will be telling this story in her Stitch With Me and stitching this piece in a modern day city in Scotland. He would probably be flabbergasted. He would say, "Oh my God, that's just so unbelievable." So back to the stitching of this. I'm only in it. I've only been working on this for a few days, and it's been quite confetti heavy. As you can see, I'm just up in the border. I wasn't sure whether I was going to actually do the border, but then I thought, look, if you're going to go for it, just go for it and do the whole thing. And I'm going to work, I think, from left to right at the moment and see if I can get to the end. But then I was thinking, gosh, there's an awful lot of blue on the right as well. So maybe I could just work by page. So I'm not entirely sure now. It depends. The way there isn't a particular direction that these stitches these symbols are going. They seem to be all over the place. It is actually quite confetti. So if you don't like a lot of confetti, I think maybe it mightn't be the chart for you. I like it so much, I'm willing to put up with the confetti. I don't mind. But I think it's easier for me to do it cross country, like I'm doing at the moment, because I get more stitches in. But it does also mean that sometimes I do have to keep swiveling this round and ending my thread at the back and starting again where it's too far to carry the thread, because I don't really like carrying threads too far across the piece. So it really does depend on your style of stitching, whether you don't mind the confetti and at the end of the day adds up to a more detailed piece, or whether you can, really not bear it and decide not to do it. As I said, I've already done quite a number of different shades of yellow. As you can see, I'm still going with the different shades of yellow, but I'm sure it'll get better. And I was not sure about the bottom section, although I totally love it. It's beautiful. I'm thinking, am I going to get tired of all those flowers? But I don't want to crop it either, because that would seem like doing an injustice to the full thing. It would be, I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me to crop it. Not this particular piece. So either I go for it or I don't. So I think I'm just going to go for it and see where we go. But it's not going to be a focus stitch, and it's not going to be something I do every single day. It's probably going to just put it into my routine. And it's hot here in Scotland. We're having another bit of a heat wave. I think it said 27 degrees Celsius on my phone today, so I'm feeling quite tired. But I really wanted to get this video done because I just thought some of you, I know not all of you, it's going to be to your tastes, but some of you may like it. So I made the effort to put it all together for you. And I think some of you had said in the past that you enjoyed some of my storytelling in some of my previous Stitch With Me's. I recall doing one, but I can't remember. I can't really remember what it was about. There was one I did which I was telling a story, I don't know, way back, probably a year ago. And you found it interesting. So yeah, there's that. And I just thought, well, when I've come across something that I find interesting, why not just share that? It gives me an opportunity to do a Stitch With Me that isn't just rambling on incessantly about nothing in particular, and giving you some story to focus on, something interesting. So that was the reason of this one today. So one of the other thoughts I had was, oh, this is going to take me a long time to complete. It's not the biggest chart that I have or have started. I think it comes to about just over 200,000 stitches. So it's definitely not like a super size or anything like that. But it's still big, and it's still going to take a while to do. And then I thought to myself, well, don't worry about the size. Just if you want to stitch it for the pleasure of stitching it, that's the reason to be doing it, not because of its size. And also don't feel guilty if at some point down the line you find you're not that interested in stitching it. Just make your day as pleasurable as possible, as easy on yourself as possible. And when you find something you want to do, just do it. And I think we've been over this and over this many times on floss tubes. Lots of people struggle with what they feel like they should be doing versus what they feel like they want to do. And I think I've just eliminated the struggle by just doing what I fancy. The reality is that you either stitch on something or you don't. I don't know again about an end of month update, because I'm thinking, if I'm only working on 2 or 3, is there any point doing a full update video? So I don't know about that. Or should I do more videos, more stitch with me's where I can talk about my progress rather than just come on and say, look, I just, and then when I've actually got more progress to show, when I've done more on anything, then I can come and do a video rather than just, parading 2 or 3 whips. I don't know. I'll have to have a think about that. I know that my end of month update is quite well viewed. I feel like I've been narrowing my whips down just a little bit this month, probably due to the heat and other stuff. So I'll have to wait and see, folks. I don't really know, but I will come back and do another stitch with me. And please let me know if you've enjoyed this. It's really good for me to know, because then it gives me that incentive to do another one or plan another one. I don't think I can do them every single week because that would exhaust me, but I can certainly, continue. And I just think it's a nice thing to share. So I think I'm going to end it here. So let me know. It's going to be a rather short one, obviously, not as long as I thought it was going to be. But thank you for listening. And as always, I love your feedback. It makes a difference it does sort of make a difference to how I feel about, my input and what sort of videos I make. So let me know if you enjoy the Stitch With Me's and if you particularly like this type of Stitch With Me. And I'll have a think and see what I can do. So my friends, take care of yourselves, enjoy your stitching, let me know what you're stitching on, and have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye for now, and see you soon.